I don't play with lions. I don't play with those. I don't even do roller coasters. Wow.
Well, hello.
All right, well, the Young Turks, JQ, Yasmin, Aaliyah Khan. Yasmin's on Rebel HQ on YouTube. You're checking that out. We got a huge show ahead for you guys today. Lots about the Epstein files. They're figured out, oh, right, we have the co-conspirator in jail. Maybe we should talk to her or in prison. So we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to the latest set of flares that are thrown out to try to distract you from that. The House panics and literally, well, they don't run for the hills, they run from the hill. Okay, I'll have to redo that joke later because it was so good. Anyways, and one more thing to tease in later in the show. AOC getting a lot of heat from the left. Why? Is she right? Is she wrong? So that's gonna be super interesting. Okay, all right, Yaz, what do you got for us?
All right, we have a lot to get to in this first hour, so let's get started. The DOJ has just announced a meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell, even though the DOJ had previously said that the whole Epstein case was essentially closed. So in a joint statement issued earlier this month, the DOJ and the FBI both said that after a thorough and exhaustive review of Epstein-related evidence, including images and videos of Epstein, underage victims, and over 10,000 downloaded videos and images of illegal child sex abuse material and other pornography, this is what it said. This systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. There was also no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. Cenk, I don't feel like this is gonna go over very well with the base. What do you think?
Yeah, so this is obviously an attempt to cover their ass. And you can't say, hey, investigation's over, there's no evidence at all. To, oh, right, his main co-conspirator is in prison and we can talk to her anytime. So more about that hilarious part of that irony as we go on in the story. But there's one thing I'm gonna point out to the audience in a sec, yeah, is that a line in there that is in that statement that was, to me, was a little unbelievable. And so why don't I let you tell the rest of the story and then I'll come back with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the memo also reiterated that Epstein did in fact commit suicide, even though a lot of people feel like that isn't true. And they cited that all of the information that can be released has been released and that they are concerned about protecting the privacy of the victims. And that is, to some extent, very understandable. I think it'd be a much bigger problem if the DOJ and the FBI just started releasing basically child pornography to the public. But the thing is, no one is asking for that, right? We don't need or want more information about the victims. We want to know who are the people who have been exploiting them, and now we want to know why these people are being protected by our government. So today, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche released a statement which was shared by Attorney General Pam Bondi on X, saying the joint statement by the DOJ and FBI of July 6th remains as accurate today as it was when it was written. Namely, that in the recent thorough review of the files maintained by the FBI in the Epstein case, no evidence was uncovered that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. President Trump has told us to release all credible evidence. If Ghislaine Maxwell has information about anyone who has committed crimes against victims, the FBI and the DOJ will hear what she has to say. Therefore, at the direction of Attorney General Bondi, I have communicated with counsel for Ms. Maxwell to determine whether she would be willing to speak with prosecutors from the department. I anticipate meeting with Ms. Maxwell in the coming days. Until now, no administration on behalf of the department had inquired about her willingness to meet with the government, and that changes now. So brave. And FBI Director Kash Patel quote tweeted that statement saying, "Get it." So the irony here, as others have pointed out, is that these are the heads of the DOJ and the FBI, the same departments that issued that joint statement 2 weeks ago. There's no way that all three of these people were not involved in drafting or at least releasing that memo. Of course, there's also the very careful wording around Trump authorizing the release of all credible evidence, and what is credible and what isn't is highly subjective. But speaking of Trump, let's check in with him. How is he doing? Not well, it would seem. In his most recent social media blitz, which was full of desperate attempts to distract attention away from the Epstein files, Trump invoked a name that he knows riles up his base every time, and that is the name of Obama. Here he is trying to sway the conversation in a way that is just generally less focused on his friend Jeffrey Epstein and himself.
Was your former attorney would be conducting the interview, given?
No, I have no concern. He's a very talented person. He's very smart. I didn't know that they were going to do it. I don't really follow that too much. It's sort of a witch hunt, just a continuation of the witch hunt. The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up all the way going up to 2020 in the election. They tried to rig the election and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that.
Well, as if he wasn't sure if that would be enough of a hook for his base to latch onto, he threw out another old faithful, Hillary Clinton.
You know, when we caught Hillary Clinton, I said, you know what? Let's not go too far here. It's the ex-wife of a president, and I thought it was sort of terrible. And I let her off the hook, and I'm very happy I did. But it's time to start after what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Obama's been caught directly. So people say, oh, you know, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. They sent everything to be highly classified. Well, the highly classified's been released. And what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level. So that's really the things you should be talking about. I know nothing about the other, but I think it's appropriate that they do go.
So what is he even talking about? He is referring to claims made by Tulsi Gabbard that Obama either led or backed the effort to investigate Russian interference in the 2016 election, claims that have been wildly debunked even by a Republican-led Senate. Speaking of which, Obama's office put out a very rare statement just today responding to the allegations. They said, out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response. But these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction. Nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. These findings were affirmed in a 2020 report by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee led by then Chairman Marco Rubio. Anyway, Congress is currently at a standstill over Epstein disclosures, and in an effort to not vote on whether or not to release the files, Republicans in the House have just called off the votes that were originally on the docket. Congress is set to leave for a month-long recess at the end of the week, but we will see if that happens because Trump is actually now suggesting that they should skip it. But Cenk, I'm sure they're hoping that they'll just run out the clock on this week, go away for a month, and then by the time they come back, people will have moved on. Do you think that's a good strategy for them?
No, I don't think any of this is going to work. I'm going to tell you about 200 squirrels in a second, but I'm curious if anybody voted in one direction here. We're asking on the live chat, shows live 6 to 8 p.m. You know that. This is a good faith effort. or B, a smokescreen, this interviewing of Ghislaine Maxwell. Does anybody think it's a real good faith effort? I mean, because the very first question I'd ask is, well, no, apparently not too many. Okay, wait, yeah, all right, almost everybody says smokescreen. Because the first question I'd ask is, why did it just occur to you, right? So I'm gonna get to the couple of lines that I think were super telling. So first, delivery ghost on our YouTube member section apparently agrees with me. Says, here we go again. Don't look at the bad stuff about me. Chase this squirrel instead. So let's start talking about those squirrels. So first, the lines that drew my interest. Well, during that video, he said, now the witch hunt you should be talking about is, and then he started talking about the Obama witch hunt. Like, Freudian slip alert, Freudian slip, okay? Something hasn't slipped that much on TV since Janet Jackson. Okay, then all of you agree. Marco Antonio writes in, this is all a bag of squirrels. So now, but the line that really drew my attention in the Todd Blanche statement, where he said, okay, all right, fine, we'll talk to Maxwell. He said, the FBI and DOJ will hear what she has to say. It's like he's doing us a favor. Like he's being really magnanimous. Like, fine, we will hear what Ghislaine Maxwell has to say. Why do we have to push you into it? Why did that never occur to you before? Oh, right, there's this co-conspirator, the biggest groomer in American history, the one he did all the crimes with. God, I can't believe I didn't think to ask her. And they think they're not insulting her intelligence. Come on, and he even phrases it that way. Okay, fine, we'll talk to her, okay? So they're giving the whole game away left and right. Another one of our members having trouble finding it now, but made it good. Oh yeah, and then the other 40 slip he had was Caddy Daddy pointed out, be a YouTube member to be part of the show. Hit the join button below or tyt.com/join. It wrote in, whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Donald Trump. That is what he said. If you rewind the tape, it's like right or wrong. We're gonna have to go after them. I think you're only supposed to go after them if it's right, not if it's wrong. But hey, if you really want us to talk about your witch hunt, okay, I got it. All right. So now, first, the privacy of the victims is squirrel number one. Why? It's the easiest thing in the world to redact. Nobody's like, yes, and nobody's saying, I need to know about more personal information about the victims. No, we're all saying, don't tell us about the victims. And they're like, we can't because of the victims. Shut up, redacted documents, move on. It takes about if it's as many files as they say, what, a day, a week? You've got an army of people who work for you. So anyone talking about, oh, the victims is purposely trying to divert your attention, because that has nothing to do with this. It's like saying, oh, now you want me to root for the Kansas City Chiefs. What? That has nothing to do with this. Why are you bringing that up out of nowhere? What a random thing. Name me one person who said, I demand to know more information about the victims. You can't name one. Okay, so number two is the fake files, right? He's like, oh, the files don't exist, there are no clients. That's the first thing they say. Then Trump comes out and goes, oh, it's Obama and Biden and Comey and the other guy, Clapper, oh my God, look, fake files. Okay, so that's squirrel number two. Squirrel number 3 through 198 is, we gotta change the name of the Washington Commanders. Obama did it. What did he do? I don't know, we're looking into it. We've organized the witch hunt. Okay, Russia. You're gonna go back to Russia? Hillary Clinton's email service. Dude, when you go back to Hillary Clinton's email service, you might as well hang a giant neon sign in front of the White House. We're trying to distract you. Please send more squirrels. Are you gonna go back to stagflation of Jimmy Carter? Are you gonna be like, I can't believe Seward bought Alaska. We gotta go back and do investigations of Seward's folly. Okay, this is so obvious. All right, squirrel number 199. We're gonna release the grand jury testimony. Then you find out the grand jury testimony is like minuscule, it's microscopic. It covers less than 1% of the files. Okay, squirrel number 200 is, oh my God, we found Ghislaine Maxwell in prison. We're gonna go talk to her now. Okay, yeah. By the way, look. The part of the people who actually did the crimes that we're apparently never going to find. We know the crimes, we know the victims. The only people we're not allowed to find out about is the perpetrators. For those folks, they have to be furious at the Trump team because they're like, you idiots. The way you do a cover up is you pretend you're looking into it. And then you release limited documents and go, oh my God, that's all we had. Golly gee, what could we do, right? But instead they're like, there's no documents. There are no clients. There are clients, but they're all fake. They're planted by Obama. That doesn't make sense. That was in the first term, Trump term. I should have known by that. They were planted by Biden, okay? So, yeah, okay, go talk to her. But you know what might happen? In fact, another member wrote this in. I want to see if I could find that one. I think it was on tyt.com. Oh yeah, Dirge said, with the narrative that the list is fake, manufactured, or missing, the stage is set for a Maxwell pardon. Like, it's possible that they go talk to her and they're like, oh, she gave us really important information about one of the people who did these horrible crimes. It turns out it was a guy named, is it just Jeff or Jeffrey? Jeffrey Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein. That she gave us information about him, so we're gonna let her go early. You think they won't do it? I mean, because they got orders, right? They get orders, and all of a sudden they say there is no list and there is no client, and then they all panic about diversions. So the people who gave them the order might told them, hey, you know what? Ghislaine's working for us. So I mean, that poor girl's been in prison for like 5 years or whatever, says that intelligence agency. You know what? Pretend you're going to solve the case, and meanwhile, give her less time. Like, I'm not saying it's definitely gonna happen at all, but it's not impossible because they've done such outrageous things. Now, if you're a right winger and you go, wait a minute, didn't Joe Biden cover this up too? Yes, he did. You look, if you go back to 2006, the evidence has been overwhelming. The tens of thousands of hours of tape. Obama had it, presumably after the 2006 arrest. Okay, but after the 2019 arrest, certainly Trump had it, Biden had it, Trump had it, has it now, right? And now you just discovered that they're porn. No one looked since 2006. But even if you don't say, okay, put that aside. Since 2019, not one person inside the government, including all the prosecutors, looked to see if there were clients on that tape or if it was just tens of thousands of hours of random porn. Like, no one in the government knew that. Come on. And okay, last thing for now. You know, as I look at read one article after another and look at cable news covering this, and every time they say Epstein killed himself and there are conspiracy theories that he might have had other clients. How could you call that a conspiracy theory? If you call that a conspiracy theory, like the government could come to you and say, your mom is an orangutan from Venus. And is that government said it? There's a conspiracy theory that my mom is actually human, but a ludicrous conspiracy theory. Obviously, my mom's an orangutan from Venus because the government said so. No, the conspiracy theory is that the girls raped themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's so confusing because this whole administration has a very interesting relationship with the truth in general. And this is something that we're used to dealing with by now, right? Like, we're used to hearing them say one thing and then say something completely different the next day, and then criticizing people who believed them the first time they said something, right? And that's just been kind of the nature of these last 10 years. I mean, we were talking about Tulsi Gabbard earlier. Just a month ago, Trump didn't trust or value the things that she had to say, but now he's all about her. Whatever she says goes. A month ago, he said he does not care what she says in regards to a different issue, but it really is just a matter of convenience for him. And unfortunately, nobody on his side of the aisle, nobody in his most devoted base, none of them are gonna call him out for any of that. And whenever they're in charge of certain files and whenever they release things, that's where things get a little bit confusing, especially for the base, because it's like, are you operating with the belief that the government is lying to you, or are you operating with the belief that this administration, which is currently the government, is trying to help you and protect you and save you from whatever else like all the other governments had done prior? So I think that's part of the reason why we see a lot of flip-flopping and a lot of feelings on the right now, where they really just don't even know how to feel for themselves, And really, this is all very embarrassing for Donald Trump, though. And I think to an extent, all of this, distracting people everywhere, it's kind of work. Maybe not the distractions are working, but what I think did give him a little bit of a leg up was when he called his supporters stupid. I think that actually sort of worked out well for him. But like, I don't know if you know what it's like to be in a cult. I don't know, I'm just assuming because I also have never been in a cult, but there's nothing worse than someone questioning your loyalty, right? There's nothing worse than disappointing your dear leader. And when Trump called them stupid, that's what he did to them. He said, I'm disappointed in you. You're not smart enough. You're playing right into the Democrats' hands. And there's also this level of cognitive dissonance there, where even if they were mad about all the Epstein stuff, they can hear Trump disparage his dumb supporters and convince themselves, oh, he's not talking about me. I don't even care about Epstein. I'm not one of the dumb ones. I've always been on his side. And ultimately, I think that could work out well for him. All this distraction stuff, it's so obvious what he's doing. We know what he's doing, but I think calling his supporters stupid might have actually been okay for him.
I don't know about that. I mean, if you're someone who gets off on being called stupid and it makes you follow that person even more,
yeah,
man, that is a different level of
Jake, haven't we
masochism.
seen this before though? Like he's insulted his base so many times. I feel like in throughout history, from his 3 election campaigns.
I don't know. Yes, I don't know. Yes, no. I think both sides insult their own voters 1,000 times over. I mean, didn't Biden insult us by saying, "Oh, I'm young and dynamic, and I'm the best possible Democrat to run against Trump"? Oh, I'm not senile. My uncle was eaten by cannibals, and how many people on our side believe that?
Said that's not nice and that's crazy, and you're insulting our intelligence. And I feel like
I don't think so.
Cult, you don't hear.
No, I don't think so. Yes, I don't believe that at all. I think until the debate, every media person, every leading Democrat, and unfortunately, and this is what is heartbreaking, tons of Democratic voters were like, "Yes, sir, you are the best Democrat to run. You are young and dynamic. I will believe you." So look, what I'm trying to say, is for all sides to snap out of it. There's a hypnosis that if your leader tells you something, it must be true. No, they're politicians. They're all lying sacks of crap, okay? Sorry, almost all, okay? But it's like, so Biden is a giant liar. Kamala Harris was never gonna do any of the things she promised. Obama didn't do any of the things he promised. So is Trump worse? Trump is worse, yes, okay? So that's why I voted against him 3 times. He's a lunatic, he's out of control, he does this stuff. But his base is actually, in a lot of ways, questioning him. And there's this idea that, oh, the polling's holding for him. No, it's not. Now Politico is like, all mainstream media was like, the polling's fine. We checked the last hour, it's fine. Everybody move on from Epstein, right? And now all of a sudden, there's articles out going, yeah, there seems to be polling coming soon that doesn't look as well for Trump. We're not gonna tell you what it is yet, but it's almost like they're waiting to say, oh, it must be something else that drove Trump's polling down. What's driving Trump's polling down is a lot of Trump voters are going, I'm not stupid, and I'm not gonna listen to this crap. So honestly, I think we should be giving them credit for that. No,
absolutely, yeah, and that's a really great point that you brought up the polling, because I feel like a lot of times you don't always see what's in the zeitgeist reflected in the polls, but I mean, like it's like a distinct correlation between everything that's going on and his numbers going down, and he already didn't have a great approval rating to begin with, So the fact that he's losing even more steam, you have to assume that it is coming from some of the people who weren't actively speaking out against him before, prior to all of this. And he did a lot of things to upset his own base that they still stuck by him for. So I want to be hopeful that this is the thing that finally breaks them. It seems to be going that way, but I am a little bit like a little uneasy about it. Still.
Yeah, last thing I'll say, bottom line is, look, it's not about which one is worse, guys. Stop comparing the two. No, it's not Biden versus Trump. It's Biden and Trump versus the rest of us. Biden didn't release the files for 4 years either. Trump didn't release the files for 4 years before that. Trump's still not releasing them today. So is Trump more culpable because he might be on the list? Is Trump more culpable because he's the president right now and he's actively saying, I'm not gonna release it, I'm not gonna prosecute anyone? Sure, you could say he's more culpable, and I agree with that, right? But that's not the important part. The important and interesting part is that both parties and all of the US government is saying, we are never going to tell you who raped those girls. We are all together protecting the people who raped those girls. Okay, that's the iceberg. Like the partisanship and the tribalism is the tip of the iceberg. The iceberg is, no, there's the people in power are all lying to us, and they're doing it to protect the powerful. So that's the most important part of this story. And you'll know there's accountability if someone is actually prosecuted. The rest of it is jibber jabber and a bunch of flying squirrels.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will just say real quick, I mean, I think the reason why absolutely the Biden campaign did not release the Epstein files, and they could have and probably should have, but Trump, like he ran on this, and that is why it's getting such a backlash right now. And just wanted to point that out before we go to break.
Yeah, that's definitely true. He's the one who ran on it. Biden didn't run on it at all. Yeah. And it makes him more of a hypocrite at a minimum. No question about that.
Yeah,
all right,
absolutely.
We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
I don't care about you. I just want your vote. I'll do whatever I want.
All right, back on TYT. Let's go to Super Chat first. Mark Gauthier says, the donors on both sides are involved. Proof, Pelosi said to let it go. Today, she flip-flopped. But what was interesting is that Hakeem Jeffries flip-flopped back. And so we're gonna show you that later. So he's like, okay, we gotta release the files. We decided that was a good consultant talking point we're going with. They're like, oh, good news, Leader Jeffries. They're trying to force a vote. Ro Khanna and Tom Massey are on this, then you'll get what you want. He's like, wait, I didn't look into it. No. Okay, that's what I thought. It's definitely the donors. I don't know which donors, but the donors control both parties, and both parties will not release that under penalty of law. Robe Life, RIP Ozzy Osbourne. Here, a lot of people wrote in about that. Ozzy Osbourne was an interesting, pivotal character in Western media and music. YTP Renewed said, whether right or wrong, what morality is that? Okay, it's an excellent point. It's literally the opposite of morality. John Camille writes in the YouTube member section, those files likely incriminate the entire world's controlling class. It would bring about a paradigm change to let that info out. Thousands of FBI agents scrubbing files right now. Well, I look forward to that paradigm change because the people ruling the world right now aren't doing a very good job. I'd like a new ruling class. And what I would love is for it to be the average person, but I know that's impossible. Look, power protects itself. Almost all of my career in news has been understanding, analyzing, and sharing with you guys how a few people at the top who have accumulated that power use it to make sure that all of the advantages go to them and not to us. And if you think about it for a second, that is a thing that human beings do. So we have to be on guard for it. We have to fight against it. And what would the powerful do? Would they just capture one party? No, they would obviously capture both parties. Would they just capture one branch of the government? No, they would obviously capture all three branches of the government. As explained in Justice is Coming, the most important branch they captured first was the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court changed the rules and allowed bribery to be legal. So after that, it was easy capturing the rest of the government. So read Justice is Coming if you can. That explains the whole thing, and that explains why it seems like, oh my God, we got two parties that are constantly fighting. They're really at each other's throats. That's weird. Every time they get in office on economic issues, they do the same exact thing. When it comes to protecting donors, same exact thing. Yes, on social issues they're different. Mintman, and that's how they get us to fight one another, is on the social issues. Mintman says, I just hope her cameras are working. I was thinking the same thing, brother, about Ghislaine Maxwell. Oh, we're coming to see her. If I was her, I'd be in a panic. Okay, because think about it. Even if they were earnest and they're coming to see her to get information, well, that's going to signal to Mossad. I mean, whoever did it, to go get her as well as they did for Epstein, right? So Albert Fiscaletti says, the Trump administration to me is like finding a flaming bag of dog crap on my doorstep every day. See, that's a fun analogy. Yes, You're like, oh, damn it, I gotta put it on. Oh, God, it's all over my shoe again. You're describing my life, basically. Jonathan Boris-Johnny says, that whole phase 1 stunt they did, then literally no phase 2, LOL. LOL indeed. We'll be back. Hey guys, Cenk Yaz with you. Also, Cuzwalt, thank you for gifting 5 subs on Twitch. You're awesome. And Nemo1870 Dragging, thank you for gifting 20 subs on Twitch. Feeling generous today on Twitch. I love it. Thank you guys. Much appreciated. All right, Yaz, what's next?
I'm also feeling very generous, so I have some Alex Jones for you all today. Let's roll the tape.
From the outside, the Trump administration campaigns on exposing this cover-up, blowing the lid off this cover-up. And then they get in office, and now it seems like they're part of this cover-up.
You couldn't do a bigger Streisand effect. You couldn't come out and say, I'm more guilty than what he did. And my loyalty is to the truth. I'm actually autistic about it. You know, I can't, even if I want Trump to succeed and the Democrats are my sworn enemy trying to put me in prison, I'm just like having to report this, that this is beyond insane.
Yeah.
And it's like Trump blowing his feet off with a 12-gauge shotgun.
All right, Alex Jones and comedian Tim Dillon got together for what they called an emergency podcast about the Epstein cover-up, during which they both criticized the Trump administration's sketchy handling of the Epstein files. Jones did his usual caveats, saying he sees no proof that Trump is implicated in the files and that he didn't actually do anything wrong. He went on a long tangent about how the Democrats likely added damaging information about Trump to the files when they were in power, which, you know, he would have no way of knowing if that's true or not. But he did go as so far as to call Trump's refusal to release the documents suicide.
He comes out the next day and says on Truth Social, no, we need the FBI to move on. I told him to do this. And the next day in a press conference, he chews out the reporter when they're talking about all these issues, saying, how dare you desecrate the graves of dead kids in Texas with the floods? Shut up. And it's uncharacteristic for Trump. He looks scared. He looks concerned. And then all the other Truth Social posts about if you ask questions, you're with the Democrats, and this is all a Democrat made up hoax, and you're just idiots. When all his surrogates had promised they'd bring this out, he talked about bringing it out. So this is harikari. This is seppuku. For those that don't know in Japanese, that means suicide. This is Trump self-harming. I don't know if Trump can course correct from this.
We're going to hear from Tim Dillon, who says he met with Vice President JD Vance last week. But first, Cenk, what is your reaction to all of this, to Alex Jones? I thought it was funny that they had to call an emergency podcasting session to discuss all of this. I don't know why Tim Dillon is dressed the way he is. What do you think?
Tim often dresses like that. I mean, I don't know the brother, but that's a very normal outfit for him. And I'm no one to talk about outfits. But look, Alex Jones is still just as crazy as he was yesterday. And in parts of that episode, he was talking about how Obama is a CIA baby. And I was like, of course he is. But weirdly, he said he's definitely born in Hawaii. And I was like, what? And he's like, well, that's because his father's actually a CIA agent and not the guy from Kenya. I'm like, all right, whatever, right? So I'm not sharing it with you guys because I think like, oh my God, Alex Jones might be onto something. No, number one important point here is look at, Alex Jones, who's very far right, and Tim Dillon, who's part of the independent podcaster group, right? They both voted for Trump, obviously, but but one's independent, the other one's right wing, and they are both not letting it go, right? So that division within the MAGA movement, within the Trump voters, is still there. It hasn't gone away. The bag of squirrels that Trump threw at it hasn't worked. That's super relevant. And then I got to give Tim Dillon credit. The brother is kind of fearless, and so you might not agree with everything he says, and I don't agree with everything he says, but he's willing to say things that other people are not willing to say, and that's some of what we're going to show you here.
Oh yeah, okay. So he did have lunch or he had dinner with our Vice President JD Vance. So he revealed during this conversation that he did have dinner, and the things that were said, there was a clear disconnect between what JD Vance told him and what the rest of the administration is saying publicly, he says.
When Bondi said we have 10,000 hours of video, she said we have 10,000 hours of video. I had dinner last week with the vice president. He told me that that was commercial pornography. They do not have videos of any powerful person in a compromising position. That's the party line that they're going with. If that's the case, why would Pam Bondi call it evidence? Why would she say it's evidence? She's not an idiot. She's the attorney general. Why would she say she has files on her desk if none of these implicated anybody? It just feels like they're covering something for sure, 100%. And I feel like they're telling a story, and the story doesn't make any sense.
Oh my God, I can't even focus on what was being said with Alex Jones just like blowing out that cigarette in my face. It was very awkward. Anyway, it gets even juicier. According to Dillon, JD Vance actually agrees with the critics behind the scenes. Take a look.
What I told Vance, I said, if you don't disclose everything, you're done. I mean, nobody will support you guys. You are fully and completely part of this cover up if everything doesn't come out. I think it paralyzes their presidency completely.
And what did Vance say?
He agrees with me. He agrees with me. You know, like it really is.
Yeah, even Mike Johnson came out a week ago and said release it.
I mean, he agrees with me. The calls are coming from inside the house.
All right, well, in the past, Vance has vocally called for more transparency about the Epstein case. In 2021, he wrote this on X. He said, if you're a journalist and you're not asking questions about this case, you should be ashamed of yourself. What purpose do you even serve? In October, he said on Theo Von's podcast, we need to release the Epstein list. But now JD Vance is staying pretty quiet on the whole thing. He hasn't said a whole lot lately. He attacked the Wall Street Journal last week, though, for reporting on his relationship with Epstein. So that is an interesting development here. Cenk, you know, it seems like between the pundits and the actual administration, and now even JD Vance and people like Mike Johnson who are saying one thing, then changing their minds, saying something else, going back and forth. We're also seeing it on the left quite a bit. We're never going to get our hands on these files, I feel like, and I'm not happy about that. But it is becoming more obvious that there are people on both sides of the aisle, specifically within the Trump administration. And as we said in the last story, they are the ones who promised to release all these files. They're not doing it. It's very obvious now that they're protecting people who are on the list, the people who were victimizing all these girls. What do you think is going to come from this, as far not just within the MAGA movement, but with the overall Republican Party going forward?
So I like what Tim Dillon's doing, because we didn't show you this part, but he keeps saying it's Mossad and it's Israel that was behind Epstein. And so here's the two reasons why I like that. Number one, I think it's the most likely answer, but I'm guessing, we're all guessing, right? So if you told him, if we found out definitively that it was just the CIA and Mossad had nothing to do with it, I wouldn't be at all surprised. I wouldn't be like, oh my God, that's shocking. No, not shocking, right? If we found out no intelligence agencies were involved, but Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, and Bill Gates, and a bunch of other super rich, powerful people were involved, and that's why they were covering it. Again, I wouldn't be overly surprised, right? But it's one of those three options. And so mainstream media goes, no, it's none of those options. The government said that it was, that there were no clients, and that everything else is a conspiracy theory. Well, if you believe that, honestly, you're not very bright. right? So so the hundreds of girls, I mean, as we keep saying, because it's so absurd, it's so over the top, the hundreds of girls raped themselves. But come on. I mean, you want to talk about insulting our intelligence. It's forget the government, mainstream media that calls other things conspiracy theories. No, brother, the conspiracy theory is that the girls did it to themselves. That's the lunatic conspiracy theory. And if you were a real reporter, that's what you would write. But instead of all the reporters like, you better not talk about Mossad. You know, that's crazy. Ben Smith the other day flipping out, it's not Mossad. Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro, we gotta move on. The more they panic, whenever Israel's mentioned, I move it up another notch and another notch and another notch as most likely, okay? We're judging it from the outside, not because we have some sort of secret evidence from the inside. I would never claim that, right? But based on the context clues that they're throwing out here. So that's number one reason why I like what Dillon's saying. The second reason is, if it's not Israel, and Israel feels like they're being accused, they have enough power to get their files released. So we'll have the answer either way. Like if we never get the answer, then it was Israel. If it's not Israel, we'll get the answer. Because Israel will be like, people are blaming me. No, that's it. Anti-Semites, release the files right away. Good, then I'd be on your side. Okay, so, but interestingly, not a single Israeli supporter has been like, release the files. They're all, and by the way, let me correct that. That's actually not true, okay? I oversimplified there. I mean, prominent Israeli supporters in the media like Levin and Shapiro. There are plenty of people who support Israel that are normal human beings, both on the right and the left, and I've seen it. I'm not just saying it, I've seen them say, yeah, release the Epstein files, 100%, right? So, well, you know why? Because Mossad didn't call them and say, like just CIA didn't call us and go, oh, we're doing a secret conspiracy, right? That's why I find it so strange that Levin and Shapiro in particular, they both say that they talked to Israeli officials, and then they both come out and say, we gotta move on from the Epstein files. Those two are very questionable. Everybody else is just reacting without enough information. Anyways, now look, I like the podcasters overall, not because they are on our side. They seem to be leaning right. They supported Trump. I'm against all that, but at least they're having real conversations. When you, like, a human conversation hasn't broken out on cable news in decades. So it's all talking points and consultants and, hey, Mr. Pundit, what do you think about populism? Well, you know, all my clients that have given me millions of dollars tell me that this is what we think about populism. Oh, shut up, right? And at least they're having real conversations. And you know what's interesting is they, in a sense, they didn't live through the first Trump administration. They were alive, but they weren't on the air. Some of them were like Rogan, right? That's why, in a sense, you could say they're a little bit more culpable. Like, brother, you saw a billion lies from Trump the first time around. But for guys like Tim Dillon, Theo Von, Andrew Schulz, et cetera, they, to my knowledge, I'm sorry if I got it wrong, but they weren't on the air where they're covering it day to day. Like Trump said, what? Trump said who? Yeah. Like, you serious? So they started during the Biden era, and Biden's talking about how his uncle is being eaten by cannibals. So they think, oh my God, these Democrats are huge liars. I'm going to the right, right? And then the right gets in and they're like, whoa, that's a nuclear level of lying I didn't expect. Yeah, they should have expected it, but they didn't. And so at least guys like Tim Dillon are being honest enough to call it out.
Yeah, I mean, that is a really interesting perspective as far as like how they really just weren't on air. So it's hard to understand how much of what is happening, not just within the last 4 or 5 years, but within the last 10 years, or even within the last 20 years that they were paying attention to with this level of intensity. Not for nothing, you know, we have a lot more access to our public leaders and politicians now than we did before. But that said, you know, I was in junior high and high school during the second George W. Bush administration, you know, and that was when I like politically turned on. And it wasn't necessarily because of the president and what was happening with Iraq and everything like that, but it was because all of a sudden these things that were happening in the world, they were impacting my life, you know, and we were just more aware of it. So that's why I never really understand when people say they're not political, because it's like, what kind of life do you live where this stuff doesn't touch you? But It is interesting, and I kind of go back and forth with the idea that, it's good to have your talking points kind of like thought through at the very least versus, people just reacting to things. Because I feel like whenever you just react to something, it's helpful to think before you speak generally, right? But we get a lot of reactionary content these days. And sometimes I do feel like, sometimes that's why we have people who say one thing and then the next day they're like, actually, I feel like it's this. And more power to them. I would much rather them do that than just like leave it out there. But at the same time, people like Tim Dillon and Andrew Schulz, who was never my favorite, even before he got political. I never found him funny or interesting. But now these people, they have voices that regular everyday people are listening to, and they're being touted as beacons of normalcy in a media ecosystem that really hasn't been much thought or attention to normalcy in the first place.
Yeah. So last thing I'll say is that, well, twofold. Wolf Blitzer will make anyone else look normal. So if you compare people to people on cable news, yeah, they'll all look human. And finally, about the porn tapes that they mentioned, the so-called porn tapes. Like we said earlier in the show. So you had tens of thousands of hours of tape on Epstein, what you thought were Epstein clients. That's why Trump and his entire team said it in his first term. When Biden was in office, no one disputed that they had tapes on actual clients, Democrat or Republican. But now, for the first time since 2006, when they got some of the tapes, they've looked at it and go, oh, it was porn all along. None of you thought to look before. That's your story and you're going with it. And then they wonder why we think the government is lying to us. Okay, all right, we gotta take a break here. When we come back, oh no, Hunter Biden's back, okay? And he's gonna hit a lot of people and they're gonna hit him back. So we'll get to that when we return.
I'm Batman.
Okay, free speech.
Back on TOT, William Caldwell, thank you for the super chat, we appreciate it. Jen, I know you had a critique of me, or it sounds like you had a critique of me, and you're a member, so can you write back in and tell me what you mean? I'm not sure I understand what you mean, and then I'll see if I can read it to everybody. Ronan DLB said, you can be an idiot and attorney general. Yeah, look, when I was growing up, I believed in the mainstream media mythology that these politicians and famous people and people in media, et cetera, were amazing people, right? No, they're a bunch of servants for the donor class. So they're usually a little bit below average in intelligence, and they're super weak, and their job is to take orders. So they come by and they go, yes, sir, oh, you're going to give me $50,000. I'll do whatever you say, sir. That's who the politicians are. So yeah, the attorney general is actually quite often a moron. So they're appointed by the politicians, so they're supposed to be a tad bit better, but they haven't been in my lifetime. Bill Barr was a disaster, Eric Holder was a disaster, and if you're a Democrat, too, Eric Holder, a disaster. He's the first a-hole who said that due process is not necessarily a judicial process, that the executive branch could kill American citizens without asking the courts. A total embarrassment. But hey, he was a part of the establishment, so no one cared, no one said anything. So anyway, every day attorney general that Trump had was a disaster. Bruce City Mike, of course, Holder was under Obama. And then Merrick Garland. Oh, I didn't know Trump had anything on him. I'll try to prosecute him 2.5 years in. Okay, Bruce City Mike says, when we find out who did those crimes, does it make my groceries cheaper?
I started using the word, the groceries.
Yeah, no, Bruce City Mike, listen, two things about that, brother. You've been a member a long time, I know you're genuine. But number one, if it's true that hundreds of girls, underage girls were raped, getting justice for them is important in of itself, even if it doesn't affect your grocery prices. Okay. Secondly, Democrats can do two things at once. If you say, no, they gotta be busy focusing on economic policy. I mean, I love that kind of talk. So tell me the economic policy that Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are focusing on. Or any Democrat right now, outside of Bernie, AOC, and Ro Khanna, right? What policy, what economic policies, what grocery, our groceries are gonna be lower, why? Because of what the Democrats are not offering that solution anyway. So it's not like, if they didn't talk about Epstein, they'd be talking about higher minimum wage, they'd be talking about paid family leave, they'd be talking about lower drug prices. No, they're corrupt dirtbags who are still stuffing their pockets of money from big pharma. I'm sorry, I don't want to break your heart, but that's 85, 90% of the Democratic Party. They work for big pharma, big oil, all these guys. So don't tell me they're working on grocery prices. We'll be back.
I started using the word, the groceries.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Yaz, and Robbie David just became a member by hitting that big, beautiful join button below the video on YouTube and wrote in, Trump is squirming, keep pushing on Epstein, let's widen these cracks. And by the way, let's try to get to the truth. All right, Yaz, what's next?
All right, let's just roll the tape on this story and get right into it.
Him, and everybody around him. I don't have to be nice. Number one, I agree with Quentin Tarantino. George Clooney is not a actor. He is a I don't know what he is. He's a brand.
Well, strong words from a clearly very bitter Hunter Biden. So during his interview on Channel 5 with Andrew Callahan, Hunter railed against pretty much everyone that he thought played any part in taking down his father during the 2024 election, including maybe even especially George Clooney. We're gonna hear a lot more from the former president's son first, but Cenk, what can our viewers expect? Because that was a rough start.
Oh, it gets way rougher. He's a runaway freight train, totally out of control. So he's gonna say a lot more crazy things. People are gonna fight back. We're gonna show you all that tape. And then Yaz and I will tell you what we think about this. And look, sometimes there's silver linings in this kind of out of control rage attacks. And then you accidentally reveal things that are true. And there were a couple of those within this rant. But overall, Hunter Biden is a mess. As my daughter would say, I don't want to spoil the beans for you, but this is not going to end well for Hunter.
Yeah, I think that's putting it nicely that this was a mess. So Hunter Biden, he is furious with a lot of people, but we're gonna start with George Clooney and then move on from there. George Clooney originally supported Joe Biden's bid for a second term and even headlined a record-setting fundraiser for the then president. But he changed course after Biden's disastrous debate performance against Trump in June 2024. I know you all remember that debate. He made his opinion known in a piece for the New York Times following the debate, calling on Biden to drop out of the race, which clearly hit a nerve with Hunter Biden. Here is more of his attack.
By the way, and God bless him. You know what? He supposedly treats his friends really well. You know what I mean? Buys them things. And he's got a really great place in Lake Como. And he's great friends with Barack Obama. What do you have to do with anything? Why do I have to listen to you? What right do you have to step on a man who's given 52 years of his life to the service of this country and decide that you, George Clooney, are going to take out basically a full-page ad in the New York Times to undermine the president at a time in which, by the way, what do people care about the most? Why do you think that the Republicans have an advantage over us? Because they're unified. They will go along with anything. I wasn't asking anybody to go along with anything. I was asking people to go along with this. The most successful administration in my lifetime And I'm including the Obama administration, I'm including the Reagan administration, I'm including every administration in my lifetime.
You know, one could argue that 52 years of service to your country is enough. You know, thank you, but that is enough. So Hunter also claimed that Clooney made up the story about Joe Biden not recognizing him at an event, and he accused him of haranguing White House staff because Biden criticized an ICC arrest warrant against Benjamin Netanyahu that Clooney's wife helped to craft. But Hunter's rage did not stop at George Clooney. He went after anyone who he thought undermined his dad in 2024. Let's see.
You know what George Clooney did? Because he sat down, I guess, because he was like given a blessing by the Obama team or the Obama people and whoever else, and David Axelrod and whoever the else, is to go, okay, yeah, you know what? We are going to insert our judgment over yours. Me and James Carville, who hasn't run a race in 40 years, and David Axelrod, who had one success in his political life, and that was Barack Obama. And that was because of Barack Obama, not because of David Axelrod. And David Plouffe, and all of these guys, and the Pod Save America guys, who were junior speechwriters in, on Barack Obama's Senate staff, who have been dining out on the relationship with him for years, making millions of dollars. The Anita Dunns of the world, who's made $40-50 million off the Democratic Party. They're all going to insert their judgment over a man who has figured out, unlike anybody else, how to get elected to the United States Senate over 7 times, how to pass more legislation than any president in history.
Well, the Pod Save guys, they didn't take that attack lying down. They clapped back right away, telling Hunter Biden that he's not the victim that he thinks he is. Listen.
His big beef is that Republicans stick together and Democrats are united. But he's obsessed with this show, obsessed with George Clooney. They don't talk about Gaza until 2 hours and 50 minutes into the interview. I'm guessing that was the bigger threat to party unity than a George Clooney op-ed. You know what I mean? It's just this sense of entitlement that, like, from Biden, from his family, from the inner circle, that he was like owed the presidency, owed a second term. It's just very grating. If I was in a room with him and able to talk rationally, I'd just be like, hey man, look around the world. Look at what's happening in this country right now. Like, I know you're angry personally, but you're not the victim here. We're all living with what happened in this election. And
you got a pardon. You're fine.
It's just... Yeah, utter lack of self-awareness.
Yeah, they also responded on X. So Tommy Vitor said, it's good to see that Hunter has taken some time to process the election, look inward, and hold himself accountable for how his family's insular, dare I say arrogant at times, approach to politics led to this catastrophic outcome we're all now living with. And Jon Favreau just said, there goes my bid on that painting. So Cenk, I found all of this super irritating. I don't understand what Hunter Biden hopes to get out from any of this. I don't know if he's trying to go for that likability angle with like dropping all of his F-bombs and like criticizing George Clooney, who is like objectively one of the most likable humans on the planet right now, just like broadly speaking. I did find the way he was speaking to be just like egregious, the way he had like such a limited vocabulary, let's say. I felt a little bit childish to me. But of course, I found the content of what he had to say not only irritating, but disappointing, because as predictable as these political types tend to be, you always want to hold out a little bit of hope that some message is getting through somewhere to someone. And this kind of dispelled a lot of that for me. Whatever hope I had is just like, it's not happening. And I didn't actually include this in the story, but the New York Times recently published a piece, and the headline was something about the Democrats' autopsy of what went wrong in 2024 is actively avoiding the likeliest cause of death for the reason as to why the Democrats lost the White House. So as the DNC is trying to figure out what happened, even though like we've told them until we were blue in the face time and time again, even during the campaign, what they were doing that we didn't like. So they're not looking into Biden's decision to run for re-election in the first place. They're not looking into the fact that he waited until after the primaries to drop out. And as far as the Harris campaign itself, they're not looking into a few different key decisions that were made, like framing the election as democracy versus fascism, and not addressing Trump after he attacked her on her stance on transgender rights. And if I recall correctly, and Tommy Vitor kind of touched on this in that clip we just showed, but there wasn't even a mention in the New York Times piece of the Biden or Harris campaign stance on Israel and Palestine, and the fact that so many Americans we know withheld their votes because of that one particular issue. And we know that that's true because they said it repeatedly. Like, people were all over saying, I'm literally not going to vote for either of these candidates because of this. So all of this retroactive, like, forensic investigations that the DNC is doing right now, they're just not getting it. And at this point, it seems as though they don't want to. They already told us that they're going to be chasing higher dollar corporate donors in future elections. So, like, why would they care what the voters have to think? What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, so I know why he's doing it, because no one's buying his modern art anymore. Because the modern art, let's be honest, were bribes, okay? Why were they bribing Hunter Biden? I don't know, just to make Papa feel good. I don't think they were getting anything from Joe Biden. We've gone over that 100 times. If they were, I'd be furious about it, but it doesn't look like it. But hey, your money dried up. Papa, you thought he was gonna get $300,000 a speech. He's getting no speech offers, because he can't speak. So now they're like, what the hell, man? After you retire from politics, you're supposed to get stinking rich, and I'm supposed to take all that money. But Hunter's running out of money. And now, like, nobody's hiring him to be a Ukrainian gas expert anymore. And Dad can't make any money, so he's in a rage. There's a part of me that really gets bothered by one part of this that no one else is talking about, which is he's making the other guys who realized in the 11th hour that Biden was not young and dynamic, he's making them look like heroes. Because he's like, no. Even after he tried to eat his foot on a stage during the debate, like, you should have stuck with him. And they're like, no. When his brain fell straight out of his ear, we were brave enough to notice it and slightly call it out, but not completely. We wanted to be respectful. And then a couple of months later, we were like, really? Okay. And now those guys are the heroes because Hunter Biden's out of his goddamn mind. Okay, so let's break down the answers to a couple of questions he asked. Who the hell does George Clooney think he is? He thinks he's Joe Biden's boss, because he is. Wait, why? Why is Clooney Biden's boss? Because Biden has, in his entire career, what has he done? Listen to his donors. George Clooney's a giant donor. So when donors talk, servants like Joe Biden listen. So and who took out Joe Biden? Do you think it was the other Democrats? You think it was Pelosi and Axel? I said, no, the donors took out Joe Biden because they realized too late, we invested in a jalopy, okay? We need a more functioning corporate robot, okay? They're the ones who stopped giving money, that's why Biden left. But they could have written 1,000 strongly worded letters to Biden. He was never gonna listen because he's not even of the right mind. He's, if it's dementia or senile, whatever it is, his brain is not functioning. So he was never gonna say, yeah, I think you guys are right. No, he ran out of money because George Clooney is his boss. And of course, he's a symbol. That goes to answering another part of what Hunter Biden said. He's like, who gets elected to the Senate 7 times? What a historic career. I'll tell you who gets elected 7 times, the guy who puts a for sale sign on his policies. That's why Joe Biden used to be known as the senator from MBNA. That was a credit card company based in Delaware, because everybody knew Joe Biden will do anything for a donor, anything for a donor. He was named after a credit card company, that was his nickname. Okay, so that's how you get elected 7 times over. You say, donors, I'll do anything. And then when the donors turn on you, you can't then be like, I'm so outraged. Brother, you were never in charge in the first place. Did you think you were in charge? No, the minute that you anger the donors, in this case it might have been legitimate, but the minute the donors are dissatisfied with you, off you go. You live by the donors, you die by the donors politically. Okay, and Hunter's just figuring this out. Maybe he didn't have time because he was studying Ukrainian gas so much. And then last one, Obama team. Who the hell do they think they are? Brother, Barack Obama anointed Joe Biden the president in the 2020 primaries in South Carolina. He called up everybody and said, after South Carolina, before Super Tuesday, okay, everybody shut up and endorse Biden. And They did. Buttigieg, Klobuchar, all of them bent the knee. They didn't bend the knee to Biden, they bent the knee to Obama. But after Obama hands you the presidency, then you turn around and go, no, why did you object? Just because my dad had dementia. Me and mommy had it figured out. Me and mommy were gonna do foreign policy and modern art. And Blinken was doing a great job of doing, I'm sorry, they're gonna do domestic policy. I don't wanna get it wrong. And Blinken was doing a great job of doing foreign policy on behalf of his clients at his firm, Israel and the others. Okay, so we had this on lockdown. Why did Obama change his mind? Now, Daddy, I want power back. I want money back. No one's buying my scribbles anymore. Okay, yeah, I know, Hunter, nobody is. So try to get a real job. I know that sounds like too much to ask of you, but there were two things that he revealed there that were interesting and true. Oh, so Anita Dunn made $40 to $50 million informally consulting Biden throughout. Okay, somebody's getting rich off that administration. Now, do you think you want Joe Biden to go, even if he has dementia, if you're A, his son, or B, someone making $40 to $50 million off of him? Okay, oops, he just revealed something interesting. Second thing is, in a clip we didn't show you, he said, the debate, he was tired. He went around the world 3 times. He said, oh man, he's 81. He said, of course he's having trouble. Yeah, brother, but we're not, like somebody else said it, we're not asking you if, how's your dad gonna be in the nursing home? I think the Pod Save America guys might have said it. We're asking you, can he be president of the United States for the next 4 years? But in the midst of that rant, Hunter Biden said, and he took an Ambien because he needs to get to sleep. So how often did President Biden take an Ambien? And he took an Ambien, was it right before the debate? Or was it 12 hours before a debate? Does he usually take Ambien before he goes speaks publicly? So these are a lot of interesting questions in the only times where he accidentally told the truth.
Yeah, there's so many moments in this interview that were very, very puzzling. But I'm also curious, who is this interview for? Who is lining up to hear what Hunter Biden has to say? The Republicans hate him. The Democrats would rather pretend he doesn't exist because at best, he's been a headache. And again, putting it lightly, for the Democratic Party and for Biden's single term as president. Also, he's disparaging Obama. His dad would never have been president if it weren't for Obama. He's disparaging the guys from Pod Save America. They have more experience in government than he does. But the part that got me also was the part about acting like a man who has won his reelection in Congress so many times is worth listening to. And it was like, that was the part where I was just like, they really don't get it. Like, they really are just not listening. Like, my God, how many times we have to tell these people that we want fresh people with fresh ideas in our government. We want to vote some of these older people out, people who have been sitting, taking up seats in our House and our Senate. We have people like Nancy Pelosi running now for her, 21st term in office. Is that something that anyone is celebrating? Mitch McConnell, these people, their bodies are literally falling apart. And I'm not, happy about that, but I'm saying go home, go home and rest and just move aside so other people can come in. So it is very distressing that they are clearly just not listening to the people. And I don't know where we go from there.
Yep. All right, guys, here's where we go from there. Second hour. So in the second hour, AOC gets criticized by the left. Are they right? Did she deserve it? We're gonna talk about that, but you're gonna check out Yaz's Modern Context podcast. I know that. And I know you're gonna check out her videos on Rebel HQ on YouTube. So Yaz, you're awesome. Thanks for joining us, appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Cenk. Bye.
All right, we'll be right back. Every day, the Young Turks delivers 2 hours of solid, fact-based, timely news and progressive commentary on all the day's most important stories. We keep our viewers informed while also providing perspective and insight on the news we cover, so you understand not only what's happening, but also what's happening behind the scenes, the stories behind the stories.
We play musical chairs and put these children in one awful detention facility to the next. That's what's happening at the border.
The things that got him banned, he's still spreading. So presumably, I think it's reasonable to say that if you allow him back on the website, he's going to do it again.
Any legal voter that we deem not willing to vote for my side shouldn't vote because it'll replace me that's supposed to vote for my side. That's not how voting works. That's not how democracy works.
And while many people following today's political news can get discouraged about the direction of the nation and the world, that's not us. At TYT, we're genuinely optimistic about the future, and with good reason. Today, wide majorities of Americans agree with our progressive stances on issues ranging from healthcare and education to climate, immigration, and wages. The rising generation of young people are also overwhelmingly progressive in their political beliefs and policy objectives, and they're increasingly flexing their muscle as voters and activists to demand change from our elected officials. The traditional mainstream media is mostly AWOL. They, along with the government and many other cherished institutions, have been captured by corporate interests. Audiences sense that they're not getting the whole story or even the truth from once trusted outlets, whether broadcast and cable TV news networks or national newspapers and magazines. The antidote is the Young Turks. Unlike mainstream corporate outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, the defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma, and we don't carry water for the Republican or Democratic parties. So watch us Monday to Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and join the thousands of progressives around the globe who tune in every day for TYT's unmatched, award-winning content and see what it's like to experience a news organization that only answers to you.
Indisputable, exclusive. Exclusive, disputable, exclusive. We brought you this first. No other news agency has this video. No other news agency has this story.
Every week on Indisputable, we do original, exclusive, investigative reporting you'll find nowhere else.
Our reports have been viewed by millions. Hosted by Sean King, Ben Crump, Senator John Ossoff.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
We catching these cases on camera. Just imagine the things that we don't see.
Our groundbreaking investigations and exclusive interviews bring you the real voices no one else wants you to hear. We tell the stories.
Imagine a prison that is so racist, the corrections officers contact me. That is a life or death situation being created. A black woman who was driving for Uber was allegedly assaulted by a white male passenger. After we got involved, roughly 24 hours later, the police all of a sudden opened up an investigation. What was going through your mind when bullets were simply flying inside of your vehicle?
Honestly, I thought I was going to die.
Did these officers ever say that you fit the description of somebody they were looking for? Did they say that?
Never.
Okay, that means they lied.
And we want you to be part of our truth-telling movement. Send pictures and video of stories no one else is telling and a 1 or 2 paragraph summary of the story to Indisputable's exclusive tip line at indvideos@tyt.com.
If you have more information about what's happening at this particular facility, please let me know.
Together, we're challenging the system, and together, we're making a difference.
I have the entire background to this story, and it is going to make your blood boil.
Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, unveiling the truth, empowering the people. Weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific.
This is humanity, bitch, and you should appreciate it.
These go to 11.
right, back on TYT, Cenk and Jordan Ewell with you guys. Jordan's, of course, on Rebel HQ as well on YouTube. All right, lots of interesting things to go over. We got, AOC getting criticized by the left in a little bit. We've got Anna on CNN that we're going to start with. So let's do it. Let's get to it.
Take a look at this.
I would love for them to release the files. I am not at all in Trump's base. However, I care deeply about it because I'm not going to buy this argument that like these young girls were raped by what? By what? Did they rape themselves? No, they got raped by people who are in powerful positions. And I want to know how many of those individuals are currently serving in our government in some role or the other.
American awake for 18 hours a day. How many minutes do you think they spend worrying about this stuff? Maybe they were raped, maybe they weren't. This is not what American families give a damn about.
Last night, Anna went on CNN Newsnight, where she discussed the Epstein files. But as you just saw, her fellow panelist, Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, as he's known, was not as concerned about how Epstein and almost certainly others abused young girls. Here's more of Kevin O'Leary and Anna debating the issue.
Nobody gives a damn about Epstein because he's still dead, okay? He's still dead. No one gives a damn.
No, people give a damn.
What they care about, look at the American economy right now. A lot of people had a lot of mistrust on the tariff issue. Economy's on fire. The average person at the kitchen table is not worrying about Epstein. Don't give a damn. They want to provide for their family, and they are.
The Epstein client list that's going to take down all of your Democratic enemies.
Bring it.
Yeah, well, yes, bring it. Donald, please. Donald,
nobody gives a poop.
You don't give a poop, okay?
The
Other
polling
people do,
indicates.
including people like me who want justice. And I want to know how many of those people are in our government.
I
don't know about
poop about this.
There's more to life than the American economy. There's justice and the fact that we might have pedophiles serving in our government right now.
Oh my goodness,
that's the problem.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, what people care about is how to feed their families and how the economy grows and take care of their futures. This stuff is poop on a stick. Nobody gives. I gotta stop.
Now, Cenk, I want to bring you in here. We have more, but what do you make of these clips? This idea that nobody cares and that they're only worried about the economy. There's some truth to that, but I think there's more to it.
Yeah. It's not hard to figure out that you can care about both things. So for example, I care a lot about the economy and I think that the average American is getting screwed. I think we should have higher minimum wage, we should have lower drug prices, etc. Does that mean my brain is too small to fit Gaza into it? No, I could also want justice for the Palestinians. Wow, look at that, I did two things at the same time and my brain didn't break, okay? So it's weird how much Kevin O'Leary doesn't want to talk about the Epstein files. So as I was watching that live, I thought, he's super dismissive. I don't think Anna's gonna let him get away with that, right? And then Anna jumps in and starts saying what you guys just heard there. And as she was going and going, I thought, she's gonna provoke him into saying something crazier, and she did. That's when he said the first thing that we showed you guys, maybe they were raped, maybe they weren't. Maybe they weren't? That's a new one. I mean, because Trump said maybe the files don't exist and the clients don't exist, but no one's ever said the girls weren't raped. Like everyone concedes they were until now. And because it turns out Kevin O'Leary thinks it's poop on a stick. Oh, I don't even know what that means. And then there's a couple more things here, and we'll get to all the arguments, Jordan, as we watch more of it. But I'll say one more thing for now. When he said in that clip, she says, those pedophiles rape those people and might be in our government now, or at least the people protecting them, right? And he said, oh my goodness, that's terrible. Wait, you don't think that's terrible? You think like he's being sarcastic? Like, is that no big deal that we're covering up for pedophiles? And that seems like that's his main argument. Oh, hundreds of girls, underage girls were raped. Who cares who raped them? No one, he said it a million times. No one cares. It's not a big deal if they're in the government. Also not a big deal. If it's being covered up, well, you know what? Maybe we should cover it up more. Maybe they were raped. Maybe they weren't even raped. Maybe they don't even exist. I don't know what conspiracy theory Kevin O'Leary is cooking up. But look, to me, Jordan, as I look at that, this is why you need people like us on cable news. because otherwise all this stuff just doesn't get challenged nearly well enough.
Yeah, I think the idea that people don't care is a laughable one. Like, we've seen Trump supporters for years focus on this, talk about it. He made it a part of his campaign. People in his orbit have talked about this and promised that transparency would be delivered by the Trump administration. So this idea that people, certainly on the right, don't care is laughable, but there's a large contingent on the left. And I think it's not just because this is such a sensational story. It is, and there are people who are invested in finding out more about what's in those files, who was involved, but it reflects a broader problem and a broader concern in American society, which is that elites don't face any repercussions for their actions. And you have people on both sides of the aisle who are likely involved, and donors on both sides of the aisle who are likely involved. And my read on all of this is that both parties don't want this coming out. While there are some on the left right now who are saying we should release the files, I think the reason you didn't see that during the Biden administration was to protect the wealthy elite on the left who were involved and who donate to Democrats and super PACs. They're just protecting their insiders club. We're not in that club. It's a big club, but we're not in it. And that's why I think the average American you're seeing a majority of average Americans interested in finding out what's in those files because they want some accountability for obvious wrongdoing. What do you think?
Yeah, and so the other thing that was driving me crazy about what O'Leary was saying is, well, the markets are doing well. And he repeated that at least 200 times in that 1 hour episode, right? Okay, but brother, the markets are fickle and they go up and down. And so I'm noting for the record that you're saying the Trump administration should be judged on the markets. Because later when they turn down, I don't want you saying, oh, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. It's okay, it happens. No. This is the same thing when, Biden's got high gas prices. Oh, goddamn, president has high gas prices. Trump comes in, gas prices go up. They're like, it's no big deal, it's no big deal. Okay, so yeah, I got it. You're a weirdo partisan. And yes, for Kevin O'Leary, but there is some chance that he would actually criticize Trump because to him, the golden calf story in the Bible is literal. Like, it's the Wall Street bull, right? It's like a golden calf to him, and he worships that day and night. So he's like, the markets. But the girls didn't have to get raped for the markets to do well. Those two things are separate, right? You could care about justice. If you said to him, hey, you know what? CVS is having a massive problem with their inventory and it's affecting their stock price because people keep stealing from CVS. You would say, that's really important. I'd be like, why? The market's doing well. Why, Kevin? Why are you all excited, right? Imagine somebody did corporate espionage and stole a whole bunch of money from one of his beloved corporations. You'd be like, oh, it's outrageous. Why, Kevin? What's the big deal? The markets are doing well. Why don't we let all the prisoners go? Markets are doing well, so let's just have no justice at all. And you know what? So you don't want to arrest these pedophiles. You said it was no big deal, right? Should we let the other pedophiles go? Do you think the market is connected to that? Is the market talking to you now, Kevin? Okay, is it in the room with us? Okay, I get it, you're obsessed with the markets, but not everything is about that, and we could actually have justice here. And the idea, and this is the overall larger point, Jordan, is the media pretending that the American people don't care, and that what the government is saying is normal. No, it is not normal to say that no one raped those girls. That is not normal, that's a conspiracy theory. In fact, this is what breaks my head, my mind. Like, guys, the mainstream media is telling you that anyone outside of Epstein and Maxwell being involved is a conspiracy theory. So I want to ask every single mainstream media reporter and anchor, did Epstein and Maxwell rape all of those girls? They were the only clients, they were the only ones who did it. Or do you think there are other people? The government says there are no other people. They put out a statement saying there is no one else and we're not going to prosecute anyone else. So which one is the conspiracy theory? That there was no one else or that there were other clients, other powerful clients? If you say that the conspiracy theory was that there were other clients, the government must be telling the truth that there were no other clients. Well, then you're not a reporter. You're just not. Like go into a different line of business. Because if the government tells you you're from the planet Uranus and you write down, I am from Uranus, you're not a reporter, you're a moron. Okay.
Let's get into what's going on in the House of Representatives. Republicans in the House of Representatives are panicked over the idea of voting on a binding bipartisan resolution that would call for the Epstein files to be released. Here is a quick snippet of that resolution. Not later than 30 days after the date of enactment of this act, the Attorney General shall, subject to subsection B, make publicly available in a searchable and downloadable format all unclassified records, documents, communications, and investigative materials in the possession of the Department of Justice, including the Federal Bureau of Investigation and United States Attorney's Office, that relate to Jeffrey Epstein, including all investigations, prosecutions, or custodial matters, Ghislaine Maxwell, flight logs or travel records, including but not limited to manifests, itineraries, pilot records, and customs or immigration documentation for any aircraft, vessel, or vehicle owned, operated, or used by Jeffrey Epstein or any related entity. Individuals, including government officials named or referenced in connection with Epstein's criminal activities, civil settlements, immunity or plea agreements, or investigatory proceedings. That list goes on, but what that gives you is a basic idea of what the resolution would do. The resolution also states that any information that pertains to victims' identities, as well as any depictions of child abuse, should appropriately be redacted. Co-sponsors of that resolution include AOC, Jamie Raskin, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, and Rashida Tlaib. Apparently, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries is unfamiliar with the resolution. Here's what he had to say yesterday.
Do you plan to support the discharge petition from Congressman Khanna and Massey on Jeffrey Epstein? And if so, will you sign on to it?
I haven't taken a look at the discharge petition because as of the moment, at least, it will not ripen until after the August district work period. However, I absolutely support full and complete disclosure to the American people.
And if that sounds familiar, here's why. Ask if he supports Ro Khanna's war powers resolution that would require Trump to seek authorization from Congress for any war with Iran. Hakeem Jeffries says, I haven't taken a look at it. Meanwhile, House Speaker Mike Johnson is giving basically the same message as Jeffries, that there will not be a vote on Epstein anytime soon. Take a look.
Here's what I would say about the Epstein files. There is no daylight between the House Republicans, the House, and the president on maximum transparency. He has said that he wants all the credible files related to Epstein to be released. He's asked the Attorney General to request the grand jury files of the court. All of that is in process right now. My belief is we need the administration to have the space to do what it is doing. And if further congressional action is necessary or appropriate, then we'll look at that. But I don't think we're at that point right now because we agree with the president.
So no vote on this resolution before August.
No, we're not going to play political games with this. We've all been very clear and transparent. You have to allow the legislation to ripen, and you also have to allow the administration the space to do what it is doing. The president has said clearly, and he has now ordered his DOJ to do what it is we've all needed DOJ to do for years now.
Now, Congress was originally slated to vote on legislation through Thursday of this week, but in that scenario, a vote could have been forced on the Epstein files. So there will be no more votes on major legislation, and Congress will close a day early. Here's Ro Khanna explaining more about Johnson's strategy here.
You know, let's just speak plainly, because we use all these complex words, discharge petition. Sometimes I think Congress is sort of a priesthood, which uses obscure and arcane language to confuse the American people. Here's the bottom line. There's the majority of the Congress that has the votes to release the Epstein files. We have a majority of the votes. And the problem is that we're not having a vote. And that's the dirty secret in Washington. It's not how you vote. It's that most of these things never come up for a vote. And all a discharge petition is saying is that the majority, if they sign something, will demand and be able to get a vote on something that we know is going to pass. And the reality is that Mike Johnson is trying to recess the Congress because there's this arcane rule that the bill has to be there for 7 days before you can actually get all the signatures. And it's been there for about 4 days. So he wants to adjourn us so that we can wait till after Labor Day to get the signatures and have this vote.
Other Republicans crafted a non-binding resolution calling for the release of more files, but that's not going to get a vote either. Mike Johnson essentially is shutting down the House of Representatives to avoid a vote on this. But this created a bipartisan outrage. AOC wrote, so let me get this straight. Republicans have ground Congress to a halt and are considering adjourning the entire House for 6 weeks to avoid releasing the info they have on Epstein. Comedian and podcaster Theo Vaughn added, why can't we put the Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie bill for a vote this week? Speaker Johnson, JD Vance. And we'll end with Thomas Massie's comments on the effort to shut down his bill. Take a look.
I don't think this issue is going away over August. I think that was the admonition of our speaker in there, was just sort of stick your head in the sand, let the administration maybe dissipate this by dribbling some stuff out. I mean, people have wanted these files for years. And then, the president's staff, administration, his own children, his vice president have promised that these files would come out. And now we're being told it's a hoax. It just doesn't wash. And whether it's Republican, Democrat, or independent, across all those categories, it's only like 5 or 6% who don't want the files out.
And Congress will return in September. Cenk.
Yeah, it's amazing what just two honest men in Congress can do. Khanna and Massie. They've been teaming up over and over again, demanding transparency, accountability, honesty, something Washington is not at all familiar with, and they're freaking out over it. So to be fair here, this cost them a lot of congressional time. Now they won't have more time to do nothing. So I don't know, this is a bit of a tragedy for America. What were they doing after the budget bill passed? What were they doing?
Crypto bills.
But they already said, crypto, no regulation going forward. You guys, nice job on the bribery. You guys just run the place, right? So we took all the cops, took them out in the back and shot them, right? The ones for Wall Street, crypto, white collar crime, those cops don't exist. Don't worry, they didn't actually shoot them. It's a political analogy. Okay, so now, okay, although Trump team has attacked cops before, but anyway, now not in this case, not literally. Okay, so now the next part of it is, okay, why? Like when they come back, are they going to be able to switch Republican or Democratic votes? Because it looks like they have plenty of votes to be able to win, right? To get the Epstein files released. So I have two thoughts about that. Number one, what Mike Johnson is doing by giving them 6 extra weeks is letting the getaway car have a nice solid lead, right? So you got 6 weeks to scrub everything. You got 6 weeks to pretend it was just in the grand jury testimony. You got 6 weeks to get rid of the tapes. Whatever you're doing to clean up, because now you realize, just saying they don't exist didn't work. Just saying they're fake didn't work. It's our own voters asking. We can't avoid it. We're going to be in trouble in our own primaries. So now go clean up all the evidence and give me the horse crap at the end. So that's the most likely answer. But if there's really incriminating stuff in there, I think there's a chance that when they come back, they'll lose Democratic votes. Like they always find a way to never ever give you what you want, right? Just when you're like, all right, and when all the Democrats are combined with a handful of Republicans, we've got enough votes in the House. A couple of Democrats decided that they cannot release the files. That's usually how it works. Okay, so we'll see if they scrub or they get the Democrats to flip. Okay, but the idea that they're going to say, well, here it is. It turns out it was the intelligence agencies. Here's the list of people who did it. To say that that's unlikely is a massive understatement. One more thing, Jordan. So you see, how Speaker Johnson's full of it. He says we have maximum we have no daylight between Congress and the Trump White House. That's true. On maximum transparency, that's true. Neither one of them want anything to do with maximum transparency. So there's no daylight between them. So that's not surprising. But then you turn to Hakeem Jeffries. That's why I say the thing I do about the Democrats. Hakeem Jeffries is like, release those files. I got a bat in my room in Congress and I'm ready to fight Republicans. They're voting on it. They're voting on it. You want to do it? No. I didn't mean actual vote. I was just consultants told me to say I don't mean vote. I don't mean vote. Like that was weird. I didn't have time to review it. How much time does it take to review a simple discharge? And you know what it's about. Do you release the Epstein files or not? Do you think Ro Khanna put something in there where like, also release the secret files on Hakeem Jeffries? What do you need to review, right? No, you're full of crap. What he's saying is, I gotta go check with my donors. And if my donors tell me to release it, I will. And if they tell me for some reason I shouldn't, I will obviously listen to them.
Yeah, it's the same kind of cagey language we're seeing from him on Mamdani as well.
Yeah.
Every time he's asked why he hasn't endorsed, well, we're having good conversations and I look forward to continuing. One thing I want to add before we go to break, to bring it back to Kevin O'Leary, as you were saying, what would they be doing that's so important right now? Well, they're passing bills that the crypto industry wants. And it dawned on me, Kevin O'Leary is a massive crypto guy. So I went to just do a quick search just to see what he's been saying about these bills lately. And he was expecting, with the passage of 2 out of 3 of those crypto bills, a $1 trillion crypto rush. And markets did grow this week. There was a somewhat sizable boom in the crypto markets. And who stands to benefit? Who profits? Kevin O'Leary. And that's why he wants Congress to focus on those bills instead of Epstein.
Yep. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, the AOC story, you guys can start voting on it on tyt.com. We got a poll question for you there. We'll be right back. All right, guys, back on the social break here. So many good comments here. Let's go to Marty Mule 1962. Martinez says, by Anna doing that, it broadens the brand of TYT into the older people who still watch TV only. Yeah, no, we'd love it. I just, as far as we can tell, I'm banned on CNN, so I like that they're at least taking Anna. Can you take Jordan? Can you take Yaz? Can you take Sharon? Can you take John and Rashad? Like in my ideal world, all those guys are on cable news spreading the message over and over and over again. But generally speaking, we're usually banned. But the fact that Anna got past the ban is awesome. Tommy Psychomoto writes in, poop on a stick. What kind of corn dogs is O'Leary eating? Good question. Nerd Girl Dragon says, could Mr. Wonderful's name be in those files? He really wants this to go away. I hear you, but I think Jordan has the right answer. It's because of those crypto bills, not because he's in it. Marco Antonio says, on a side point, Cenk now wearing the blazer black shirt combo because people said he accidentally looks better like that. LOL. Indeed, Marco, LOL. That is exactly what happened. You nailed it, smartest audience in the world. I'm not even kidding. Jonathan Boris Johnny says, Anna always the voice of reason on panels. Yeah, it is trippy that now we're the voice of reason. Okay, when we were the radicals, they want $15 minimum wage. Lunatics, I say. Lady AF says, damn, Anna's owning it on CNN. Alison Auld says, Hunter might have to get a real job. Indeed. Not sure says, I wonder who convinced Hunter that this interview would be a great idea. What a whiny dingleberry. There's some theories out there, and I don't know anything about it, and I don't know what drugs does to you, but that, the thing that might have convinced him was, getting back into his habit. So, but I know nothing about that, so don't just ignore that. Jen says, I was just responding to, I asked why Jen had written in what she did, and she explains, I was just responding to another member's question on why you say they think the Epstein victims hurt themselves. Just explaining the modern style of TYT news, not the usual robotic mainstream media crap. Thank you, Jen, I get it. So yes, I said it here, Anna said it on CNN, the girls didn't rape themselves. That doesn't mean like, hey, that's a real debate, or we think that Trump or Biden or CNN is saying the girls raped themselves, right? But if no one else raped them, it's just an interesting way of saying, well, who did it then? Because they're saying literally no one did it. And that makes no sense. Octo Squiddies writes in on Twitch, dude, your father became president because he was Obama's VP. Sit all the way down and shut up, Hunter. God, I hate defending Obama. Okay, but a good point, Octo Squiddies. I should have mentioned that. Yeah, not only did Obama anoint him on Super Tuesday, he picked him for VP. Otherwise, Joe Biden had a 0% chance of being president. 0. It's called thank you, Hunter. You might want to look into it. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Jordan with you guys. More news.
Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Bronx office was vandalized early Monday morning. And that was after the representative voted no on an amendment to cut Iron Dome funding for Israel. Ocasio-Cortez voted no on the defense spending bill itself, which included more than $600 million for Israel. Cenk, we'll get to your thoughts on this in a second, but first, here's what the vandalism looked like. AOC's office in New York City was splattered with red paint and a sign accusing the congresswoman of funding genocide in Gaza. Cenk, what do you make of the situation?
Well, so first I want to give you guys a chance to weigh in. So we do the live chat polls during the show. You know the show starts at 6 o'clock Eastern, right? But we also have one on tyt.com for one issue that we think is particularly interesting. And we do this every day too. Why did AOC vote against less Israel funding? So A, she cares that Israel be able to defend itself. Could be. B, she wants to run for higher office. C, she's worried the media will smear her. D, she wants to play both sides of the issue. Okay, there's truth in a lot of that, right? And we're gonna explain all of the nuances in a second. And I'm curious to see whether Jordan and I agree or disagree on this, because we didn't talk about it ahead of time. But from my point of view, C is the most correct. She's worried that the media will smear her to no end. They'll just obliterate her if she votes no on this, because it's for Israel's defense. They need it. We also need defense. Who's paying for our defense? Norway needs defense. Who's paying for their defense? Actually, we partly pay for theirs too. Okay, Pakistan needs defense. India needs defense. Why do we have to pay for Israel's so-called defense? I don't believe it's defense at all, and I'm gonna got numbers to back that up anyway. But the media will take your head off, and so she wants to run for higher office, and she doesn't want the media calling her an anti-Semite for the rest of her life, because the media is the worst thing in America. They're the opposite of the news. They're the opposite of truth. So, but what do you think, Jordan?
Well, let's get into what her team had to say, and then I'll share my opinion first, or after that. So her campaign manager posted this about the threats that AOC and her staff have been receiving. Last night, our campaign office in the Bronx was vandalized, and we are in the process of cleaning it up. Our office is a hub in the community, and we want it to be a safe space for all of our neighbors. In the past few days, we have also received multiple threats on the Congresswoman's life, and we are treating this seriously with our security partners and to make sure she, our staff, and volunteers are safe. On Friday, Ocasio-Cortez voted against a defense spending bill amendment authored by Marjorie Taylor Greene. After facing a wave of criticism for her vote, AOC defended her decision on X, writing, Marjorie Taylor Greene's amendment does nothing to cut off offensive aid to Israel nor end the flow of US munitions being used in Gaza. Of course I voted against it. What it does do is cut off defensive Iron Dome capacities while allowing the actual bombs killing Palestinians to continue. I have long stated that I do not believe that adding to the death count of innocent victims to this war is constructive to its end. That is a simple and clear difference of opinion that has long been established. I remain focused on cutting the flow of US munitions that are being used to perpetuate the genocide in Gaza. Following the vandalism, AOC posted this on X. Google is free. If you're saying I voted for military funding, You're lying. Receipts attached. Drag me for my positions all you want, but lying about them doesn't make you part of the left. If you believe neo-Nazis are welcome and operating in good faith, you can have them. HR 4016, which passed the House, includes more than $600 million for Israel. Representative Ocasio-Cortez posted this morning on Blue Sky about the threats that she's been receiving. People exploding this false messaging that I voted for a bill and funding that I quite literally voted no on. The threat environment this morning is scary. It doesn't help anyone. Drag me for the position if you disagree, but don't lie. It's out of control. Saying I voted for this is false. Cenk, what do you make of her justification and this idea of the carve out for Iron Dome funding?
Yeah, I want to make a couple of things clear because there's some easy things on here, but I'm really curious what you think. So, okay, first on the vandalism, that's easy, unacceptable, right? So I disagree with her vote. You know what I do about that? I talk about it. I fight back against it rhetorically and politically, right? I don't, like a weirdo, go and throw paint on her door, or worse, the death threats. How does that help, brother? So look, if you're against funding the genocide, you're on my side. We're on the same side politically, right? Policy-wise on this issue. I want to stop funding that genocide desperately, desperately. But if you look like you're attacking AOC in a way that's out of bounds, it's going to make everybody think you're crazy. You're even attacking AOC and you're attacking them this viciously. Well, okay, then I'm going to dismiss you because you're a radical. Now you might say I hate that, that's not fair, etc. Yes, but we have to play the game as it is, not as we wish it would be. I wish that the mainstream media wasn't massively biased towards Israel. I wish that they cared the same about, at a minimum, the same about 20,000 Palestinian children as they do about 36 Israeli children, right? But we all know that's not true. When October 7th happened, the media said it was the worst thing that's ever happened. Then okay, that's fair. It was a terrible thing that happened. Then Israel kills literally 50 times the number of civilians, 500 times the number of children, and the media is like, ho-hum, whatevs. You better not vote against Israel, okay? So I know how unfair it is, but in that battlefield that we're in, whether we like it or not, if you go and say AOC voted the wrong way, a death threat, you're gonna hurt our side. You're not gonna help our side because you're gonna make our side look crazy and radical. And second of all, there's two more layers to that. Number one, don't do death threats against anyone. Are you nuts? Now, and number three is, I can't believe Israel's killing too many innocent civilians. And since you voted with them, I'm gonna kill you. No, then you're not part of the peace movement. You don't care about what we care about. And that's an outrageous, terrible thing to do, and deeply ironic and hypocritical, okay? So now, on the other hand, on the actual substance of the issue, she says, well, I had to do it for Iron Dome. And so I'm reading an article about it, and they say, okay, now it's $500 million, blah, blah, blah. They go later in the article, and then 60 million for Iron Dome, and 440 million for other defense. Wait, I thought you said it was Iron Dome. Turns out only 60 of it is for Iron Dome. 440 is for something else. Trust us, it's defense. But you called the genocide in Gaza self-defense. So if that's your idea of defense, those are probably offensive weapons, okay? And really, what difference does it make? I saved $440 million on defensive weapons. Hey, look at that. I get to have $440 million that I could use to buy offensive weapons. So all of it is nonsense, okay, in terms of the actual argument. Now my questions to you, small ones and big ones. First small one, she said neo-Nazis, would you agree with do you think neo-Nazis are operating in good faith? Who's she referring to? Is she referring to Marjorie Taylor Greene and that she's not gonna work with her because she's a neo-Nazi or something?
That was my read on it, yeah. I think part of this, there's a few ways of looking at it, and I don't know exactly, obviously, how or why she decided to vote against this amendment the way she did. I think part of it is that it's just more efficient to vote against the entire thing. Okay, that amendment, to be clear, had no chance of passing whatsoever. 6 people voted for it. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massie, and 4 Democrats. 3 squad members, Ilhan, Tlaib, and Summer Lee, and Al Green. That's it. So I think the fervor with which we're seeing the left react to also AOC specific, but Look, Ro Khanna's great on this issue. Would you agree? There's no one's vandalizing his office. No one's accusing him of funding genocide because he also voted against the bill. So if you really want to talk about who is actively funding it, go after the people who voted for the bill. It's 6 people on an amendment that failed spectacularly, led by somebody who is publicly engaged in anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. If that's the hill you want to die on, go for it. I'm certainly not going to criticize Ilhan Omar, Tlaib, Summer Lee. I understand it. That's totally fine. You want to continue to fight for that? I get it. Yes, Summer Lee, Ilhan, and Tlaib are basically my 3 favorite members of Congress. I'm not gonna bash them for taking this stance, but I also understand why other people wouldn't want to associate with Marjorie Taylor Greene. It had no chance of passing. You're not gaining anything. There's nothing happening productively here, and they voted against the final bill, which actively led to the funding. So if you're mad about people funding a genocide, go after the people who voted for the bill.
No, there's something I'm not sure I understand factually, Jordan, and then I'm going to get into, I vehemently half agree with you, half disagree with you, and they're both vehement, right? Sure. But when you say she voted against the overall bill, what does that mean? She didn't.
This was an amendment, not a bill.
Yeah, I got you.
Amendment to the bill that she voted against.
So the amendment goes in the bill and she votes no anyway. So she votes against the 500 million?
The amendment did not get into the bill because it only had 6 votes.
Okay, so it didn't, right, of course. So sorry, what I mean is, so the 500 million is in the bill because the amendment didn't pass, right? So she votes no on the 500 million. Yeah. So why did she vote? But I don't understand the logic of voting yes on the amendment. I'm sorry, no on the amendment.
That's where I think the association with Marjorie Taylor Greene comes in.
No, I don't believe that. Okay, so
but she's effectively voted no on Iron Dome funding in the final bill anyway. So
then why bother? No, it doesn't make any sense.
Well then, okay, so why didn't Ro Khanna vote for the amendment?
Yeah, so I said yesterday. So this is the part I agree with you on. Okay, so let me do the violent agreement first before we get into the violent disagreement. All right, so yeah, so for the people saying I'm done with AOC over this, how many times have we said here? No, don't be done when you disagree with someone 5%, 10%, 20%, even 20%, right? So I'm going to stay principled and say I don't agree with AOC's vote there, but I'm not done with her. And you don't need to do vandalism and et cetera. No, okay, so we disagreed on that. So what? And I said yesterday on the air, not just Ro Khanna, Jamie Raskin, Jasmine Crockett, Maxwell Frost, tons of people that everybody loves, right? And they all voted with AOC. And I do have some sympathy for AOC that she's getting a lot more crap than they are. But on the other hand, why? Because she has put herself out there as a leading voice, the leader in a sense. But Ro does too, and Jamie does in his own way, right? So I think they all should have voted with Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. But I'm not gonna burn down the house because Jamie Raskin didn't agree with me on that. It's mainly that, especially because it's an amendment, as Jordan explains, and then you get to vote on the overall bill anyway. Then it becomes more of an optics issue, and they're just choosing not to get involved in that optics, right? But then when we get to that part, Jordan, that's where the disagreement comes in. So number one, I don't give a goddamn what Marjorie Taylor Greene's other opinions are. The idea of I'm gonna spite my own position to vote against Marjorie Taylor Greene. To me, that would be a no-brainer. If I'm in Congress, I'm voting with Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tom Massey. And I don't care if she comes around and goes, hey, you know what, you guys were right. We should stop doing tax cuts for the rich. What am I gonna say? Neo-Nazi, I vote for tax cuts for the rich. No, I'm gonna vote the way I wanna vote. Why would my vote be affected by her? And calling her a neo-Nazi feels like a distraction and a squirrel. Like, don't criticize me for my vote. I voted against the Nazi. Nah, to me, that's super lame.
It's a calculation that her team has made before. Like I said, I'm not gonna go after Ilhan, Tlaib, and Summer Lee for that because I respect the hell out of them. I can't say I'm surprised though. She's voted for Iron Dome funding proactively before. It's not new. Yes, I think it's important to distinguish that it's not purely defensive and it has led to civilian casualties repeatedly.
Yeah, last thing I'll say on it is, guys, so put aside, let's just agree on that it's optics for the moment being, okay? But even on the optics, why is she voting against what appears to be the progressive position. I would hope to God it's the progressive position, right? She's voting against it because, come on, guys, if she votes no on Iron Dome, they're gonna go on CNN that night, and New York Times got the ink ready to go. Anti-Semite, right? How dare you? This is for defense of beloved Israel. They need it, they need it. But AOC betrayed all Jewish people. Wait, we're talking about a government. All Jewish people, and she hates them so much. How dare she vote with the Nazi, etc. That's what they're gonna say. And so the reason that AOC oftentimes does things that I think are not as aggressive as she should be is because she's justifiably super nervous about how mainstream media is gonna end her career. Now, I think she should get past that. I think she should show the courage to get past that. And I've said that many times on the air, and probably feelings are caught about that. So it's not like I haven't challenged her. I've challenged her very aggressively on that stuff. At the same time, we have to allow for understanding what the battlefield is. So this is not the thing to go and say I'm done with AOC on, right? And also not to say you're done with Rashida Tlaib or Summer Leon. Absolutely. Let them vote the way they want, right? And as long as they're going in the right general direction, let's all go in that direction, and then we can have disagreements about which branch to take. But don't burn each other's house down over this. Let's go get on the team of please end this genocide. All right, we'll be right back. Squirrel. Back on TYT, let's go to Super Chat. Mark Jacobs says, the left's reaction to AOC is what you were saying, Jeng, that if you disagree with one thing, you get banished and say, don't ever come back to our side. Yeah, I mean, Mark, you wrote that before I said it on air, and so there, I said exactly what you thought I would say, which is, yeah, that's not a thing to burn someone's house over, okay? And again, of course, metaphorically. Okay, the Transcendental Man asks, but who is the media so concerned with Israel, Jeng? Who's behind the curtain? You always say the media, but never why, and more importantly, who? No, guys, it's not, there is no one man behind the curtain when it comes to the media, and there is no conspiracy. I was in the media, I got as B-rated speech as anybody will ever get about how wasn't establishment enough and insider enough for NBC and MSNBC. So no one has had more personal experience than I have with how the media excludes people, etc. And from my experience, I'm telling you pretty definitively, it's just groupthink. They really, like, inside that bubble, they all think the same way and they don't realize it. And they all think that they're super objective, right? And if you come in and you say, hey, I don't think you're really being objective here, they'll think you're nuts. They'll be like, you don't think it's objective that 20,000 Palestinian dead kids are totally irrelevant? Of course not. Israel had to do self-defense. Radical, drive them out, pitchforks, right? And so am I exaggerating? Yeah, of course. But do they actually write the stories with that framing? Yes, they definitely write the stories that way. What happened on October 7th? Right? Okay, good, fine. But when something 50 times that size happens. Okay, here, I'll give you a quick example. So today, Mahmoud Halil was on TV and they asked him 1 billion times, do you condemn Hamas? And so they say, well, he didn't say yes. He didn't say, okay, look, you know me, I condemn Hamas, easy, right? But how come nobody in the media, not once, has ever thought to ask, do you condemn Israel? Because if you're condemning Hamas and Israel killed 50 times the number of civilians, do you condemn Israel is kind of the most obvious question in the world, right? But yet not one anchor has thought to ask that. Not one reporter has thought to ask that. And then they tell us, I am objective and you're a radical. You sound like an anti-Semite. You think 20,000 kids are worth more than 36 kids? Anti-Semite, okay? And that's what they've done my whole life. So don't give me this crap about how you're objective. Mainstream media is the most biased thing on earth. So they're poison in this country because they take propaganda and horse crap and sell it as truth and news. And that has done enormous damage to this country. Now you know why I'm not allowed on CNN. Thank God Anna is, and hopefully others will too. All right, we'll be right back. All right, back on T-Way. You've got about a minute, guys, so I'm gonna read some of your comments and then we're gonna do a bonus episode. We have Operation Joy coming up, but we have a couple of Tuesday stories. I don't know, we're pins and needles on what we do in the bonus episode. Anyways, Mikey3343 says, do telepathic powers work both ways? Can Trump declassify Epstein files just by thinking it? Okay, because he has declassified files before. Can he classify them in the same way? We're not sure. Titan says, TYT has always been the voice of reason, just labeled extreme. Of course, by the people who don't want you to know what reality is. All right, we're going to the break? Or do we have time? We do? All right, hold on. I'll try to squeeze one more. Oh, Karen and Ganja Cat 420, thank you for joining. We appreciate it. At least I got your thanks in. Or you can do tyt.com/join and everyone will love you forever. We'll be back.